Reform UK leader Nigel Farage has announced he's resigning from the UK Parliament to recontest his own seat in a by-election. The far-right leader is facing intensifying scrutiny over allegedly undeclared donations from major financial supporters, including a £5 million gift that he received from a Thailand-based cryptocurrency billionaire. But he says he's done nothing wrong and now wants the people to decide his future. Nick Rowley is a former member of the Downing Street Policy Directorate under Prime Minister Tony Blair and is now an Associate Professor at ANU's Crawford School of Public Policy. Nick Rowley, thank you so much for joining us this morning. How unusual is this move that's being proposed here by Nigel Farage to resign in order to run again, where there is little doubt that he will win again?
Well, it's unusual, but Nigel Farage has made it his business to be the great animator of British politics. Of course, 10 years ago now, the Brexit vote was largely initiated because of the politics that was stimulated by Nigel Farage. And it's a constant show, so it's not really that unexpected, but much as we might focus on the cabaret of British politics, and British politics is a little bit messy at the moment, shall we say. We might focus on that, but the allegations against Nigel Farage are very serious, and in terms of what his future might be and how those allegations might well be properly investigated and what the consequences of that might be, it's pretty serious stuff.
Yeah, well, it might be helpful before we go on with further questions about what is that heat that he has been feeling? What are these allegations, essentially?
Well, Nigel Farage has made it his business to try and be a member of the British Parliament. He finally succeeded at the last election, but he's always wanted to present himself as the populist outsider, that it's a system that's broken and I will throw rocks from outside. But once you're inside, you need to abide by certain rules, and that's just the nature of an open liberal democracy and democratic process within a parliamentary system. And the Parliamentary Standards Commission has been looking into Nigel Farage, and as you described initially, he appears to have received an enormous gift from a Thai-based crypto billionaire. He makes a lot of this not being a donation, but being a gift of some sort. Well, I don't know how many of your viewers, any other members of staff here at the ABC, myself, actually receive £5 million gifts just from people. When you're a member of Parliament and the leader of a political party and you receive a gift such as that, it's not because you're good company, it's because the person giving you that gift thinks that you can essentially be their voice piece or affect the political process in some way. So that's one of the allegations, very serious. The second is an allegation that he's received quite considerable financial support from a very young 32-year-old aristocrat called George Cottrell, someone with a very, very, shall we say, florid past, who has been successfully prosecuted by the FBI in the United States for money laundering and for engaging in some rather strange dealings, shall we say, with regard to drug interests. And George Cottrell is not someone who there needs to be too much work done in terms of understanding the relationship between Nigel Farage and this young man. Nigel Farage himself has stated that he considers George Cottrell to be like a son to me. And there is so much material out there showing that this young 32-year-old man has been very, very close to Nigel Farage, always at his side, but also giving him use of an apartment just down the road from Buckingham Palace, helping Nigel Farage and Reform employ people to help them with their social media, and other examples of that very, very close association. Now, we shouldn't be in a position to judge the details of that. That's why we have a Parliamentary Standards Commissioner. And they've been looking into this, and they believe that there is real substance and really serious questions about the manner in which these relationships have played out.
Well, I understand that parliamentary standards process would be paused while he's not an MP. this idea to resign in order to run again. Some are labelling it a stunt. He is framing it, Nigel Farage, as the people versus the establishment. What is this? Is it a smart play or could this really backfire?
Well, time will tell. I think the general view is that it's likely to backfire. There was a really rather excellent piece in the Times newspaper this morning. And I should just, when we talk about the establishment, maybe just pay tribute to the role of a professionalised journalistic investigation. Way back, you may remember there was a whole case in relation to the impact of a drug called thalidomide on unborn children, meaning that they actually had real problems with disability with regard to not being born tragically without limbs. Now, what led to that being brought to the public attention and then proper regulation of those drugs in the UK and globally was an investigation from the Sunday Times back in the 1970s. You know, a real example of how things can be brought to the public's attention and then properly addressed. And many of the relationships that Nigel Farage appears to have been brought to the public attention by work by the Times newspaper and the Sunday Times and their investigations unit, which I think I would really pay tribute to them and use it as an example if that's kind of the value that we have of professionalised journalism. But what we have here in relation to the implications of that is Nigel Farage, as always, seeking to draw attention to himself, saying, look, let the people decide, the establishment, whether it's the Sunday Times or this acronym in Parliament, they're all against me. And therefore, I'm going to put it to the people of Clacton. A great populist play, as it were. Now, you'd think that that would actually create a lot of attention, but what's happened is that the Labour Party, the Conservative Party, the Liberal Democrats have all said, well, we've got no interest in contesting that by-election. You can stand, you can make speeches, etc., but we're not seeking to play your game. And with that, it looks like the only declared candidate against Nigel Farage is someone else who's always been very, very keen to animate the entertainment value of British politics, and that's someone called Count Binface. So we do actually have the prospect of a runoff between Nigel Farage and Count Binface at the Clacton by-election.
Nick Rowley, former member of the Downing Street Policy Directorate under PM Tony Blair, now Associate Professor at ANU's Crawford School of Public Policy. Great to get your insights on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Gemma.